Welcome to the Secret Art of Business. And today I'm very excited to have David Brown with me today. David, thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you for having me.
I'm just so excited because you are doing amazing things. Whether or not you have time to think about that or not, you are. So let's let's talk about what it is that you're doing. It is something I hear that's called the Harmony Project.
Yep. It kind of was born out of my work in New York. I've worked with choirs and things for years. And in New York, I was leading a small community chorus of 25 people at Marble Collegiate Church, which is most well known for being the church that kind of raised Norman Vincent Peale and the power of positive thinking into kind of the public kind of social culture at that time. And the boss there, my boss there, Arthur Caliandro, said, "Sure, I'll give you $500 if you want to do a 25 voice little community choir after church." And I did, and a couple of hundred people stayed. And then by December, the choir had grown to 100 people, and then the congregation filled the sanctuary, and then it grew more. And then 2 years later, we were at a sold out Carnegie Hall show for the holidays and recorded an album called Joy to the World live from Carnegie Hall, and then went on to Lincoln Center. And then they encouraged me to kind of maybe spread my wings a little bit. So in 2001, launched a citywide Metro Mass Choir, the New York Metro Mass, not as in Catholic, but Mass as in large
Large.
choir. And it was similar to Harmony in that you didn't really have to have a lot of musical background, but I wanted just people who maybe would have never had this opportunity to perform like on a grand stage. And we were supposed to launch, the first rehearsal was supposed to be September the 12th, 2001. And the day before, obviously, we know what happened. And but 4 weeks later, when the UN regathered for the first time since the bombings, my choir, which was brand new, was asked to come sing "Bridge Over Troubled Water" by Simon and Garfunkel, and it was very emotional. It was very healing. And while I had always known that music kind of was a powerful tool for inspiring people, I had never really thought of it as a way to heal riffs, heal heartbreak, heal loss, and to unify people who were different from one another. So that took off and started growing, and Oprah found out about it and did an article in her magazine, and then we were on the Angel Network, and it kind of started to kind of grow. And then we sang back up with like Whitney Houston and Michael Jackson and all these different people at Madison Square Garden, and it was kind of great. But when the music ended and when the concerts ended, so did the harmony, and everybody just kind of went their own way. And at that point, I was 4 years post 2000 9/11, and probably dealing with some residual trauma of like what we had all gone through in the city. And I had been there for 16 years, and it was like, I think I want to change. I think I want something different. And I had an idea of what I wanted, but I wasn't really sure. And I thought the best place to make it happen might be New Orleans, which I had grown up in Louisiana. And so in May of 2005, I gave the city choir a year's notice and said, "Look, I'll work with you in setting up for it to continue going." And then I moved to New Orleans, and 3 months later, Hurricane Katrina happened. Yeah.
Wow.
And it was pretty devastating because you literally just grabbed a bag because the water was coming in, and I jumped in
Yeah.
the car with two women that I thought were lesbians, that I found out later were not, but I was making an assumption on my part that they were. If they're in the French Quarter and they're
That,
two women together, maybe they're lesbians.
but at that
Um,
point, I mean, who cares? Let's
who
let's
cared? Who
higher
cared?
ground. Yeah.
They were from Minnesota, and they were trying desperately to get out of the quarter and get to an airport. And I happened to have a rental car for a design job. I did a little, the gays, we either do hair or furniture. I don't know how to do hair, so I do furniture. And I had a design job, and I happened to have this rental car. Otherwise, I wouldn't have had a mode of transportation. And the storm had imploded the windows on the car.
Oh
And
my.
so the
Wow.
glass was everywhere. It was all wet inside the car. It was disgusting. And I just said, "Jump in this car. I'm leaving right now." And we took off. And I got to where my sister lives. It's a 4-hour drive, but it took us 17 hours to get there.
Oh my God.
And we get there, and this little town of about 30,000 people became a town of like 45,000 people overnight. And I went to the convention center where there were people just on cots on the floors, babies, families, all different socioeconomic groups, all different races, cultures. People were all in there. And I felt, number one, I felt like I belonged with this group of people, like we had
Hmm.
shared something
Hmm.
traumatic in common. But I also felt like with my skill set, like how do I get these people to like come together in a way? What can we do? And so I started calling all my friends in New York because this was pre being able to just Google everything.
Right.
And I said, they need cots, they need nursing bras, they need diapers. Here's the stores that you can call. If you'll call and buy them, I'll go pick them up. And the response was incredible. And it began to make me think about how in crisis, we all seem to kind of let our differences kind of go, at least
Hmm.
momentarily, and we react to the crisis. And then I started thinking about, well, what if a choir that I put together, what if there was no musical audition? What if there was no music background required? But what was required was working together in community and building something.
Right.
Right around that time, a dear friend of mine, Josh Radnor from Columbus, who had just landed a big hit TV show, How I Met Your Mother, called me up and was like, can you come out and just take a break from all the trauma that you went through and help me find a house and all that? So I went out to LA, and the design stuff came in handy, and I started doing design and was getting all these
Hmm.
celebrity clients. And then but in the back of my mind, I kept having this idea of like, harmony project, harmony project, harmony project. How would I make this work? And I talked about it with Josh, and he said, well, if you're going to do it, it needs to be in Columbus. And I literally said, I can't live there.
What?
Yep. I said, I can't live there. In my mind, I still had 1989's Short North, 1989's Division, and everything. I
Hmm.
had not seen the growth of the city. And shame on me for thinking that, but I think people just have preconceived ideas
Oh,
of what things
absolutely.
are.
Absolutely. About
And
that
after
time was when
living,
I moved to Columbus too, and it's all true.
yeah, it's true. Like you start to go, am I going to be able to be open here? Like, am I going to have to hide who I am? Like, it seems so
Yeah.
conservative. I also questioned, I thought everybody was medicated because everybody just seemed to be so even keeled. And I was like, where's the valleys and the mountaintops? Where's the crazy?
Yeah, exactly.
I like the crazy. Um, so in '09, um, I sublet my place in the Hollywood Hills, and I came out and started putting together this idea. And I had some friends from back in the '80s when I'd gone to Capitol, reconnected me with some musicians and things like that. I went and rented the Lincoln Theater without even having a choir.
I need to
And
ask though, what made him say Columbus? Because I mean, going to New Orleans made sense because that was basically going home.
right.
And then LA, just this opportunity, it sounded very relaxing to just help other people help, design their homes. But what made him say Columbus?
So two things that one I'm sure of, the other one I think. One was he said, it's a test market capital of the
Oh, very true.
country, and like if it'll work there, it'll probably work anywhere. And
Very
also
true.
he said, you know, like to the effect of, these are my words, not his, something to the effect of like diversity, dishmersity. I mean, like in New York and LA and New Orleans, I mean, Columbus is where it's needed, like where we need to kind
I
of
love it.
bridge those gaps and
I
bring
love it.
those folks together. And I put flyers out on like at the laundromat that was down in German Village next to Hausfrau. I put them in grocery stores, bowling alleys. We put them in like hair salons, and it said, "If you love to sing, if you've been told, even if you've been told you can't,
Hmm.
if you like Glee and this kind of idea of like
Yeah, yeah.
putting a show together, meet at what was then called BOMA, Bar of Modern Art, now
Yes,
Bluestone.
yes.
Meet there, and then at the bottom I put, free bar, open bar, free food. I mean, you had to get a
Oh,
crowd.
exactly. It's like
And
I
a
might have to
couple
check
of
this
hundred
out.
people showed up, and it was the most diverse audience I had seen in one space, since I had been in Columbus. I had noticed that like restaurants, clubs are all still, I don't, segregated's a hard word, but they were
Yeah, it just
economically
there
and
wasn't a whole lot of togetherness like there is now.
Right. Economically and geographically, I think, segregated. So I committed to 10 rehearsals and one show. And knock on wood, both of those nights filled the Lincoln Theater. The people rehabbed a recreation center. There seemed to be a buzz for this, and there seemed to be an interest in this. And I saw Columbus through a different set of eyes than I had seen it in the mid to late 80s. And I was like, okay, maybe this is what I've been waiting for, and maybe this is where I can build my own family and create the life that I want to create. And so here we are, Catherine, like 15 years later, and that little 86 people who performed on the Lincoln Theater stage has now turned into a 500 voice community chorus, programs in 2 different men's prisons, a woman's prison. We work with over 350 incarcerated adults every week. Student program at South High School that ran for 12 years that had a 100% graduation rate, of when the rest of the school had like a 70-something% graduation rate.
Wow.
The highest attendance day at school was the day that we had our program, because the kids knew they had to be there. We took them to New York, to DC, to Atlanta, to New Orleans, to Nashville, showing them parts of the country they would likely have never been able to see, to develop what we're going for, which is social harmony.
Right.
So the music is simply the thing that gets them in the door, something that we have in common. And then if we lead with what we have in common, the hope is that our differences, though they will bubble up and though they will come up, we're not starting there. We're starting with something that we share in common. A great song, something that moves you, makes you cry, makes you open up a little bit. Because what happens with music, especially singing, is that your walls have to come down instantly. You're sitting between 2 complete strangers.
Right.
You have no idea whether they can sing. They have no idea whether you can sing. And in Harmony Project, there's no guarantee.
Maybe probably nobody can.
Oh yeah, it's rough at times, but there's something. It's not magical. It feels magical, but it's not. It's actually scientific about the way that it works. Is that if I'm in the middle of the chorus and I'm teaching something, it sounds rough because I'm hearing all of these individual voices.
Right.
But if I take 20 steps back, 50 steps back, 100 steps back, the sound improves. The farther that I move away from the individual expression, they're still expressing themselves individually, but the more distance that I create between the individual voices and the collective voice, the better the sound is. And so it's a not too subtle metaphor of what we're trying to do in community, which is honor the individual expression, the individual belief, the individual right to express themselves, but focus on what the power of the collective.
Yes.
And that power of the collective is generating 60,000 hours a year in volunteer community service, building gardens, building playgrounds, rehabbing rec centers, serving meals, and all of these people are being taken into these prisons, into these schools, into these differently abled supportive living facilities, and they're meeting their neighbors that they likely would have never met were it not for music. And then music is a part of all those facilities that we're in, and then they're all singing the same songs. So whenever we bring these folks together, people that are sitting in this room right behind me last night, over 400 people right behind me in rehearsal prepping for their concert, this afternoon, an hour after we're done recording, immigrant and refugee students who speak very little English will be in here singing. It's kind of exciting to see that people have bought into that. It's not about kumbaya. It's not about us all getting along necessarily or shifting the way that we think about things. It's about looking at what needs to be done and understanding that we must work together to do those things, and we can paint a mural or build a playground and vote for different people.
Right.
And
you've given me so much to unpack here, to be perfectly honest, because what you're doing is so remarkable, and you kind of glossed over the science part of this too. And just to start very simply with the singing part, I mean, I think people can really understand how music and singing can change your mood, your feeling, and all of that. Just think about all the people that have their own little car concert just on the drive to work or on a
Right.
road trip or things like that, and how much better they feel, or when their song comes on the radio or on their phone, I guess at this point,
Sure.
how it changes the mood instantly. And then that just gets, that grows and grows with the more people you have. And like you said, I love the fact that you had brought up the metaphor of, individually, there's power there, but as a group together, it just turns into something that's magic. It is just so amazing, and how powerful, if we are all singing the same tune, if you will, how we can just basically move mountains.
And that's science,
It
because
is science. I mean, you physically will feel better. You won't feel depressed. You just be in a much, much better mood.
our
And
blood
just the power
pressure.
you feel when you're around other people all singing
Yeah,
together.
totally. Brain waves begin to align. Scientific
Mm-hmm.
breathing begins to align. So oxygen intake and oxygen levels among everybody is leveling out. Heart rates begin to align. It's not magical. It feels and seems magical when it's
Right.
happening, but it's physiological, because all that singing is today is language put to tone and storytelling. And where music began, was humming and tones and centering the
Mm-hmm.
body, and tones affecting different pains and elements of the body, loosening up the neck. You go back to the ancients, and the ancients were drums and humming and howling, mimicking the wildlife that was in nature. And then humans began to then sing together, and then learn that if I sing a little higher than you, they didn't know what a third was, but it
Right.
didn't matter, because they found this harmony.
Right.
And that was the opening up of music and becoming
Right.
something more than a nomadic group sitting around a fire humming together, and has now become the most effective way of communication throughout the entire world is music.
Absolutely. And if people aren't convinced, they can think about maybe the last time they were in church or at just a big concert, and everybody started singing the same song. Everybody sounds terrible, but together it's so fun and amazing and uplifting. And yeah, I 100% believe in everything that you're doing, and even
Well,
if for
and
people
also
that
with the global students, it's helping them learn the English language.
absolutely, a lot
So
of
the
people learn
teachers
English
say,
through songs, pop songs from America and
that's
things
how
like
I
that.
learned Italian. It's how I learned German. Because singing in college, when you're studying music, you have to learn to sing. I had
Yep,
to sing the Fledermaus. And it's like, and I had to learn the German because I had to know what the story was that I was telling. And the
absolutely.
teachers say that the students are picking up English so much faster and so much better through the music than they do through the ESL classes at the school. It's
That's
remarkable.
incredible. That's incredible. And I'm going to shift gears a little bit because I want to know what you did as a child that really kind of got you to where you are. So you had to be doing creative things when you were much younger. So what did you do that was fun and creative when you were a child?
So I'm going to age myself here.
That is okay.
Couple of the things that I love to, I love to be busy with my hands.
Mm-hmm.
I was constantly redecorating my room. I was constantly changing up. I want the beds over here now. I want this over there.
I
I
did that
wanted
too.
energy and space to be changing.
Uh-huh.
And I was really into latch hook rugs. Do you remember latch
Oh,
hook rugs?
yes. Yes,
Yeah.
I did those too.
Yeah, because it was just like, it's instant.
Yeah, yeah.
Instant gratification. But really, the number one thing that I did growing up that was playtime was music. I mean, I was, my first musical idols were like the Carpenters, and
Mm-hmm.
that I would sing along to Karen Carpenter, and my range as a young boy was perfect with hers. It was just give up, because she
Uh-huh.
had that low voice
Yep.
and I had the high. And so and then as I began to explore music, then I got into, at one time in my bedroom, I had Karen and Richard Carpenter sitting on a shelf between my two twin beds. On this wall, I had Peter Frampton shirtless, that said "I'm in you" on the bottom of it, and on this wall, I had Kiss. Um, so I had the
I
Carpenters,
love it.
Frampton, and Kiss, and it was like, and my music was that diverse. Now I would close my door, I would put towels down at the bottom, because I would be in there, and I would lose myself. It was mostly women singers that
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
identified with. And I listened to Cher, I listened to Tina Turner, I listened to Karen Carpenter, and the Cher and the Tina Turner was why I would close the door and barricade it, because I would perform and dance like them, but I
Of
knew
course.
a boy wasn't supposed to be doing that,
Right.
you know? So then I would go outside and play basketball for a little while to try to throw them off the scent, you know, and then I would run back in and like put some lipstick on, bit of towel on my head and go for it, you know? I'd, you know, when, I don't know if you remember the old Cher show, she would come out in a really elaborate costume and then rip it all off and would have this really skimpy thing on
Yeah,
underneath.
yeah, yeah.
Well, listen, they blacked that out in my little town of Louisiana where we live. They also didn't sell alcohol there, so we had to go to my grandmother's house, you know, to go watch that show. And you know, my fun when my parents were at church, because that's where they were all the time. Um, I would do hair and makeup with my sisters. I would, you know, get them, and then we would put on little kind of like shows in the house. And I always tried to get the neighbor kids. They never really bought into it because I think they just thought I was crazy. But like, I always wanted to create like, you know, group. I always wanted the group. I
Uh-huh.
always wanted all of us to be. It's I don't know where that comes from. I think it's, you know, likely we moved. I went to 4 different high schools all 4 years in 4 different communities and towns. Before that, I lived in I think 15 different houses. Really unstable kind of childhood, and
Mm-hmm.
never really belonged in any school that I was in, because by the time the bullying starts to stop halfway through the year, you know you're going to be moving again.
Right,
And
right.
that was because my father was kind of unhappy and kind of going back and forth between being a teacher or being a Southern Baptist minister, and so we just moved a lot. So I think the grouping stuff and the being in community comes from that. And then with my background being in church work, because in the 80s I worked at Bexley Methodist here out on East Broad Street,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
East Main Street, sorry, East Main Street. Yeah, Main Street. Yeah. Wait, no, Broad. It's on Broad. Um, on East Broad Street. And I had grown up in the church. And then when I got to New York, it was Walter English, a very big name here in Columbus with COSI and stuff back in the 70s and 80s. He had told me to go visit Norman Vincent Peale's church. And so I went with no intention of ever going except just one time to be able to tell Walter
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'd done it. And what I realized I missed about church was community, was congregation. And so that began to inform this idea of harmony and Harmony Project, is that if we could create the congregation on the outside of the church, the synagogue, the mosque, if we could create the community on the outside of it, how powerful could that be? Because there's space in that congregation for all the congregation members. You don't have to
Absolutely.
belong to this one or this one or this one. You're a part of it naturally by just being alive and being a part of the community. And, you know, we're fortunate that Columbus just was right at the right moment at the right time. Um, it was right when Obama got elected. So there was kind of a politics aside, I think there was kind of a sense of like something new happening.
Absolutely. It's like
Yeah.
everybody kind of took a beat and said, "Wait a second.
Wait a
We
second.
can
Yeah.
yeah, we can do other
I mean,
things."
I was personally thrilled, but I know that I have friends who were not, you know, and so it was like,
Yeah.
let's still find a way. And you know, his campaign, one of his slogans, you know, the whole "be the change that you want to
Yeah,
see in the
yeah.
world,"
Yeah.
which isn't original to him, but he co-opted it for that. It kind of became the mantra for this. Let's be the community that we want to live in,
I love it.
and let's find out how we can do that. And so you bring in all my childhood stuff, you bring in all the wanting to belong and be in community, wanting to be on stage and having fun, wanting people to be able to just let loose a little bit and not take themselves
Mhm.
so seriously. And that's kind of what everything that harmony is now.
Yeah,
So
I truly believe that people, which is why I asked the question about what people did as a kid, because I think that's when you are completely unfiltered and your true self.
right.
And I think that you have just captured that and, basically just dragged that thread all the way through your adulthood and made it bigger and bigger, basically illustrating that this is your gift to the world. And you have, I know, helped so many people just with the work that you've done. And that's why I kind of said to you, I don't know if you know this, but you've done great things because you were just moving at such a fast pace. You may not get a chance to really kind of enjoy that for a moment. So I
Well,
want you to definitely do that.
well, I mean, and I do, and I work on that in therapy actually a little bit. I do hear that, and I do take it in. I think because of the background that I had growing up,
Absolutely.
that that it feels that it feels selfish in a bad way, because I know they're selfish in a good way. Um,
Oh,
that
that
it
goes back
feels
to the whole
selfish,
church thing.
yeah, exactly. Is that it's important for me that it's acknowledged that when people say I've done good things, that we shift the I to the we, because
Right. Oh, I
I
do
am a
that
part
too.
of I am a part of the we, and I
Yeah.
know that I am in that we, and that I do deserve some credit for some of what the we has done.
Yeah.
But it's the we, it's the collective that makes it happen, which is the back to the metaphor of Harmony Project, that
Yes. Yes.
one voice can be a hero, one voice can make change, yada 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 yada. But when you've got 500 voices, 1,000 voices, the change that can happen is so much bigger
Oh,
and more
absolutely.
impactful than what anybody is able to do on their own. And I've just been fortunate that a lot of people have said yes.
I think we're very fortunate to have you here. And I truly think that, since we were, kind of briefly talking about religion and stuff like that, people will question whether or not angels exist. I personally believe that they are here among us and in human form. And I'm going to definitely throw you in that category. I think,
Oh, Jesus,
like,
no, don't.
yes, I am. I am, because you have been a game changer for so many people. Oh, you can, again, we can all have that dark side. Don't forget. Remember when I was setting up my lighting,
100%.
But that's what makes the, people more, I think in some ways more powerful. You have to have, a well balance of both of those things to a certain degree
Well, and
in
I'm a
order to get
Libra.
things done. Because
I'm a
if you're too
Libra,
good, you get
so
taken advantage.
you
If you're
know,
too good, you get taken advantage of. So you have to be
right.
smart too. Um, so I guess I'm going to ask you, what's next? What's next for the Harmony Project? Or do you have something
Well,
else cooking that you are just going to tease us with?
Well, one of the things that we had talked about prior to the interview starting was, and what do I do to disconnect? What, because I think that that's
Yes,
important.
yes, yes.
And I don't know. See, I consider myself an extroverted introvert. I don't really consider myself an extrovert. The minute rehearsal's over in this room, I make a beeline out of this room and I walk into a room that has no lights on.
Yeah. I
And I
always have to lay down after a crowd.
sit there for a few minutes to just kind of get myself back, and then I get in the car. I ride home without the radio. I like isolation, and I like quiet, and
Hmm.
I have a very, very, very small group of folks that I see outside of work.
All right. So what do you do when it's quiet?
Yeah,
Like
so
what?
when it's quiet, I love to be near water.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
I will drive down to Lake Logan by myself. Nobody will even know I'm going, and I will get a pontoon boat by myself, and I will
Oh,
just go out on
wow.
the water for 2 or 3 or 4 hours, and just might listen to some music. I might just literally just be on the water, because there's something about the water for me that centers me,
Hmm.
and 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 makes me feel like I'm washing away my stress,
Right.
and kind of letting that go, casting your cares upon the water, as they used to
Yeah.
say
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
church. So relaxation for me is getting away, getting out. Um, I never imagined that I would ever want to live outside of the bustle and hustle of downtown living, and I live out now. I have to drive 15, 16, 18 minutes, depending on traffic, to get to where I live, and it's quiet. And
Hmm.
very most of my neighbors are MAGA, and I'm faithful, and we all get along, and
Yeah.
we all respect each other, and I like it, because it's not everybody's the same,
Right.
and I like not everything being the same.
I like, I like a diversity too. It's like if it's everything's the same, we all thought the same things, it would be super boring. But there's
Really
something
boring.
about the conversation and the opinion. And ultimately, what I find out is that most people all want the same thing anyway.
Yeah.
You know, they just want to live a happy, prosperous life.
Got
And
it.
it's
You got it.
simple as, and everybody has just a
And
different way of
be
getting there.
respected and just be treated with respect and
Absolutely. And be heard and
yeah.
all that sort
Now,
of
if you're
stuff.
going to come at me, I'll come back.
I will shut you down.
Don't come at me. I won't come at you. You know,
Yeah,
let's meet there. So what's happening
exactly.
next? So in 30 days from last Thursday to 30 days from last Thursday, the next 30 days. So last week we had 60 students in Cleveland for their first ever trip away from their families. These are immigrant and refugee students. The first trip that the Columbus City Schools has ever allowed this school to take. And we took them to Cleveland to see Stomp because you don't have to understand English to see Stomp.
Absolutely. You're right.
And they got to have this incredible experience. And then they got a Q&A with the cast afterward. And then we took them all to Dave and Buster's for 2 hours of playing video games.
Oh, nice.
It was just and what was remarkable about these students is how every single one of them, when they got off the bus, said thank you to the bus driver. Their hotel rooms were spotless when we went to check out. They treated everything with such respect and such gratitude. And you know, like when the servers were bringing all the food, they're offering to help. This got to be heavy, miss. Let me help. Let me help.
Oh,
They were so appreciative of something so simple that we do, and able to give them a temporary break from the trauma that they experience, to help them know what it means to be in community and to be in congregation
right.
with others. So that was last week. This week, our Differently Able program, and last week was also our Differently Able program of over 100 differently abled adults put on their own performance, music written by them, plays written by them, spoken word written by them, partnered with Alvis, Goodwill, Arc Industries, multiple agencies. Place was packed, the room was packed. So that was incredible. Next week, we have our GCAC award-winning One Week, One Neighborhood, where hundreds of volunteers descend on one neighborhood to work together to create impact in that neighborhood. And this year, it's going to be our neighborhood, Northland. So we're working on that. The following week is our concert at Huntington Park, which is a celebration of all the different human service nonprofits in the community. We wanted to lift each other up and say, yes, we're in competition for money. We all know that.
Yeah.
But why don't we just for one night a year come together, instead of just patting ourselves on our own back, pat each other on the back.
Exactly.
Say, we're here. We're still standing after the COVID, pandemic.
Yeah.
And then the week after that is the Sunflower Prison Arts Festival, which last year we made history. First time in the country that they have allowed men's prisons to travel to a women's prison. And so we had 2 men's prisons. The men that we work with show up on buses at the women's prison, and we were all in the same space. And it was artwork created by the men and women who are incarcerated, spoken word and poetry that had been created by them, music that we had worked on together. And so we're having the second annual one this year. So that's just 30 days of harmony, and that's kind of the way it goes all year long. And then we take a break in January and the first couple of weeks of August and regroup and get ready to roll again. And it's just we keep ourselves very busy. We like that because it keeps the creativity, I think, fresh, and it also keeps us nimble. Because what makes us different, now it hurts us sometimes. There is a downside to this. It hurts us sometimes in the grant process. Because the grant process, people want to, what are you planning 2 years from now? Can I use my kind of language on your?
Sure. We're all adults here.
I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? What the fuck am I going to be doing 2 years from now? What is the world going to be 2 years from now?
Well, yeah, excellent question.
Because you can plan all of this and then it can seem so tone deaf. It can seem so outdated 2 years from now.
Absolutely.
Because of where we are.
Yeah, the world's a lot different and change is happening so quick. It's not predictable anymore. It really is not. We're living in unprecedented times, as I like to say.
100%. I think you can say it's going to be a concert. It's going to be this.
That's all I got for you now.
But if you are a true creative, it changes and morphs and grows. We just had a conversation recently with a donor who said to our development director, what you said it was going to be and what it was very different. And I said, but did we achieve what we said we were going to achieve?
Right.
Because had we done the original idea, it wouldn't have been this good.
Mm-hmm.
Because we grow creatively through the
Yeah.
process. And if you are an artist, I mean, I don't know a single artist that sits down and goes, this is what this canvas is going to look like when I'm done.
Exactly. I know exactly how it's going to look. Yeah.
This
It's a
is what
moving target for sure.
this is what this poem is going to say by the time I get to the end of it. The first line of it may be going in this direction, but as you keep writing and as your emotions become engaged in it,
Yep.
it takes on a choreographed dance. I know choreographers who are backstage changing something as the show is happening.
Exactly. Because I was like, this is good, but what if? And then you raise the
But
bar a little bit and it's like, oh, this is way better.
the three best words in the world, but what if?
Exactly.
It's like, because that's what I hope as we move more in this direction as a society, that the arts community will kind of catch up to that a little bit and know that, yes, we do have to have standards, guidelines, expectations, deliverables, of course.
Right. Absolutely.
Not questioning that. But being able to say, perhaps it's about the goal,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not about the process as much as it is about what happens at the end of that process. Did art change the lives of the people that we are working with? And if it's an unequivocal yes, then does it matter as much that we said it, as long as the budget didn't change, as long as you can spend more, as
You
long
just
as
took
you
a different road to get there.
you
Yeah.
took a different road to get there. And that's what I love about this organization, is that it allows me to be nimble as the kind of de facto kind of head of it. It also allows our people to come and say, I was really thinking maybe, I know we were planning on doing this, but what about this?
But what if? Yeah.
And we have been incredibly fortunate with our primary larger funders that all of them are just like, we believe in the concept, we believe in the vision and the work. Go do that. Don't worry so much about what you told us it was going to be. Show us what it's going to be when we get there,
Right.
And so we're fortunate that way.
They just go, ta-da.
Yeah.
David, I want to make sure that I mention to people that I really want them to Google the Harmony Project. You had an awesome segment with CBS Sunday Morning. So if anything, I want people to look for that to really understand this whole amazing thing that you're pulling off. And also, I'm sure you're more than willing to hear from people if they would like to make donations or attend an event or things like that. So what is your website if they wanted to get in touch with you?
Really easy, harmonyproject.com.
Perfect. And I will have that in the notes as well to this.
And then if you want to see on our YouTube channel, we have a YouTube channel called, all one word, Harmony Project Online.
Perfect.
So if you go to YouTube and search, there's 70-something videos there that kind of go all the way back to the beginning. Because
it's really something you have to kind of see to really comprehend what you're pulling off here. And it is amazing.
Once you do, then you kind of get it. And it's
absolutely.
It's community building.
Absolutely.
Using music.
And I'm just thinking about people going, okay, so one voice and a room full of people that can't sing. How does this actually work? I think if they watch that, they will totally get it. It's really amazing work that you're doing.
Thank you so much.
And this community appreciates you. I appreciate you. And I thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you.